Good evening, America. Happy Monday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you as always from the nation's capital, where the heat just got a little more uncomfortable for people like John Brennan and James Comey. Why? Just a few hours ago, we have confirmed here at Just the News that Attorney General Pam Bondi has given the okay for a grand jury to be impaneled to begin looking at evidence of the Russia collusion hoax, starting a 10-year conspiracy to potentially deprive civil liberties in America. People like Mike Flynn, President Trump, George Papadopoulos, and Carter Page, and many others caught up in it over the course of the last few years. This is a major development. We told you last week that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, had given permission for a strike force to begin. That's a very specific tool the Justice Department uses on major conspiracies. And we told you then we would know it was getting serious when the grand jury jumped into action. We now know that a grand jury will be impaneled. Most likely, my sources are telling me, it could be in Florida, where the raid of President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home happened. So that is the very latest. You can check it out at Just the News. We're going to have a whole lot more on that over the course of the next few hours. In the meantime, it was announced over the weekend that the Office of Special Counsel, that's the whistleblower office in Washington, it also enforces the Hatch Act, that they have formally opened an inquiry into former special counsel Jack Smith. So there's two different special counsels. Jack Smith's the special counsel who went after Donald Trump. The Office of Special Counsel is something entirely different, so you don't get confused. If you remember, Jack Smith led the classified documents case against President Trump, the one that ended up leading to a raid on Mar-a-Lago, and eventually the case was dismissed by a federal judge for many grounds, including the fact that Jack Smith wasn't lawfully appointed as a special counsel. It turns out that the Hatch Act unit at the Office of Special Counsel is handling that investigation, and questions from a whistleblower and others about whether he was acting in a political manner when he conducted himself as that special prosecutor. That is a major question. The law is very clear about that. You can't mix politics and government business. We're going to get more on that over the next few days, but that's the latest two big headlines I know you're interested in. Great time to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, who's had some great work all weekend long on White House coverage, and she's got the other headlines. What's on your headlines
Thank you, John.
today?
I got to say, though, that first headline gave me a little extra pep in my step, considering how long we've been covering it on the show.
It's a big deal. We're a long way from criminal charges, but they're following the process the way you're supposed to go. So.
Exactly. All right. So how about the drama unfolding in the Lone Star State? It all started over a redistricting vote that would see more Republicans going to the U.S. House from Texas, and Democrats in the state are basically powerless to stop it, except for one move. Dozens of Democrats in the state legislature decided to not show up for the vote. They fled the state entirely. The majority of them went to Chicago, Albany, and Boston, and because of that, Texas Governor Greg Abbott is claiming the group of Democrats absconded from their sworn responsibilities to the state of Texas and have forfeited their seats.
I just want to make sure I understand this. Democrats worried about gerrymandering went to two blue states that are famous for gerrymandering, right? Illinois,
yes,
yes. You can't
exactly.
raise the irony of
and
that.
California members of Congress are
Can't
up
make
in
it up.
arms about it. And I'm like, you guys are the
Can't make
chief
it up.
offenders of this. But anyway, Texas
Sorry,
Attorney General Ken Paxton also released a statement saying that the fleeing Democrats should be swiftly arrested, punished, and face the full force of the law for turning their backs on the people of Texas. So this story has huge implications for the upcoming midterms because it has the potential to help Republicans keep their slim majority in the House of Representatives. Now, we also have some big news to get to involving the Summer Olympic Games coming up in Los Angeles. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services announced earlier today that they've issued new guidance around protecting women's sports in the Olympics. Now, if it sounds strange to you that USCIS would get involved with this and be dealing with the issue, let me explain how they're going to be doing it. So they have directed the Department of Homeland Security to stop any foreign men entering the country if they are going to be competing in women's sports. So we are going to get USCIS Director Joseph Edlow on the show this week to talk about that. So look out for that.
Yeah, pretty exciting. And listen, there's an executive order. It's the force of law.
Yes, indeed.
Why should someone get a visa if they're coming here to something that is considered an unlawful activity? So I guess it makes sense. The power of the visa, very powerful.
Indeed.
Not the charge card.
Right.
The visa that gets you
Both, really.
Yeah. All right. We're very lucky to be joined at the top of the show by a man who brings tons of common sense to a city in Washington that often lacks it. He represents the great state of Tennessee in the United States House of Representatives. He's our good friend, Congressman Tim Burchett. Congressman, good to have you back on the show, sir.
Great to be with y'all. Thank you.
All right, I want to get your reaction to the big news that is just literally shaking the ground in D.C. right now. We're moving from a strike force to a grand jury. Natural progression, but a big moment for those who may have deprived civil liberties over the last 10 years with weaponization.
Yeah, well, when my wife wears a white suit, we always know she's going to spill some tomato sauce on it somehow. When Tulsi Gabbard wears that white suit, you know somebody's getting ready to get gutted, and they did. Look, this is at the highest level of government. These folks have denied people their civil liberties, the entire nation, by their, we've talked about the deep state in the past, and that's usually just a conspiracy theory thing that they throw at us conservative folks, but it is real. And it runs to the highest level of government, and this proves it. Tulsi's brought as the young people say, Tulsi brought the receipts, and that's why this has been impaneled by Miss Bondi. So I think you're going to see a lot of people sweating in D.C. because it's secret, and you don't know who they're going to go after until they go after, and it could take a week, it could take months. Okay, it's taken sometimes even longer than that in the past. But I think they're going to get to the bottom of this. And America needs justice. We don't need this kind of nonsense. This was an attempt to subvert our country, to overthrow a sitting president, or to damage him in the future from running. So, yeah, I think this is serious. And I think if you favor justice in this country, you favor this. And the reason they're after it, the reason they're doing this is because of one man, Donald J. Trump. In the campaign, he said, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just standing in the way. And that's exactly what happened here. You've got a president who's promised to deliver on the economy, energy independence, military strength, our border, and just overall our appearance around the globe. Our enemies fear us. We're not getting hit by terrorists. They know it. They'll end up in a body bag. And our friends love us again. So I think it's a great day in America.
Yes, sir. Congressman, how much does the venue matter for this grand jury? Because thanks to the Mar-a-Lago raid, it could be Florida, but it also could be D.C., which kind of seems to me like it's a lost cause if it's D.C.
Yeah, I think it matters, unfortunately, but I'm still idealistic. I'm realistic, but I'm idealistic, and I pray a lot. And I hope that these folks look at the facts and see what has just happened, and not look at the political parties or leanings or anything, but just look at the facts.
That's so important, getting back to evidence in Justice Department, not politics. That'll be a sea change from the last decade. So I want to turn to something else that Amanda mentioned at the top of the broadcast, and that is that the Homeland Security Department and CIS, its immigration services, will deny entry to any foreign male athlete who tries to come here to compete in a women's sporting event. That obviously has big implications for the Olympics in Los Angeles coming up. But it's also just building on the common sense that Americans have. Your thoughts on using the visa to enforce President Trump's executive order?
Well, it's science. Let's just face it. If you're a man, you're a man. If you're a woman, you're a woman. There's no differentiation. And if they apply with a visa and they're a man and they apply as a woman, they are committing fraud. And that is an official document. And to do that in this country anyway, it used to be a felony. So I would hope that they would uphold the law in all shape, form, or fashion. And shame on the Olympics for doing what they did in that last Olympics. They showed our Savior in a very unflattering manner with a bunch of folks up there and a depiction of the Last Supper. And that was the last I watched of it. I saw about 30 seconds of that. And I didn't watch any more of it. And I forbid my family to do so as well.
Wow.
Sir, I'm sure that in your area of Tennessee and also up on Capitol Hill, you can hear the shrieking from Texas. They are trying to do exactly what the blue states that they fled to, Massachusetts, New York, and Illinois. They are trying to do exactly what Democrats are known for doing in those blue states, but they don't want Republicans to do it. It has huge implications for the Republican majority. Do you think the Republicans will ultimately win out?
We better. And this is what you do when you're in the majority. You start enforcing the law. Yeah. This is all this is. Quit playing footsie with these guys. Remember when George W. Bush played footsie with Teddy Kennedy over education issues and he compromised and did all these things. He ended up with a terrible piece of legislation and he got taken advantage of, in my opinion. Let's start acting like we got the majority. The coach gave us the ball. Let's run with it.
Yeah, so important. And it does seem like this generation of Republicans, unlike maybe some prior ones in the last few years, this one is determined to exercise the power that the American people gave them. And I think it's really remarkable. You have a very important piece of legislation. I think it's so important because I've been writing about this issue for 30 years. Stock trading and lawmakers, I know you want to stop it because you want the integrity of the institution to rise. Tell us about it, and then also the momentum it's starting to get right now.
Well, it just kind of faltered a little bit. It's a very clean bill. I don't like long bills. I don't like a lot of garbage in them. It just basically says if you're in Congress, dadgummit, you can't own individual stocks, and the only way you can is, if you have a treasury, something that is not, that's not as shady as the rest of it,
right.
Or if you own a mutual fund like I do. And, I got my $12,000 portfolio my buddy Tommy Seiler manages for me that I'll be cashing out here very soon because my daughter's going to school. And that's what I got it there for. But, and from here on out, the Burchett family's investment schedule will be baseball cards and comic books. And so that's about all I have left of any investment grade. So anyway, I think it's a good start. Let's pass a piece of legislation. Luna's my buddy. She's going to force our hand on it, which I think we should, because Congress basically is gutless. We're going to have some bill so watered down, and nobody believes anybody in Congress has the sense to make 300% return year in and year out.
Right.
There's a website called Unusual Whales. I don't like plugging stuff, but it lists them.
Yeah.
It lists the top 100.
That's
and
great.
Once again, I did not make the top 100. In that list. But it's Democrats and Republicans. When Joe Biden gave our missile defense system to Ukraine, and then we had to replenish ours, Republicans and Democrats, guess what, owned stock in that missile defense, those missile companies, and it was a no-bid multi-billion-dollar contract. And some of them, I believe, had bought it within 2 weeks of the president making that announcement. Washington is crooked as a dog's leg, folks. Quit trying to pick little pieces out of the trash can. Turn it upside down, and let's put the garden hose to it.
Yeah. I like it.
Sir, I want to switch over to a topic. So we are at, $150 billion in tariff revenue by now, but the jobs numbers were revised downward. I hear a lot of people who have mixed messages on the economy. How do we make sure that the American people feel that heading into the midterms and they know exactly what's going on so they can vote accordingly?
Well, I wish they'd turn off the so-called Big Four, I guess. Because in the media, all they do is the Democrat National Committee has a focus group, and then whatever sells to them, they send it out to that group. And that's why they immediately shifted from attention to their number one candidate in the country, the mayor, the guy running for New York mayor, who claimed he was everybody said you're a Marxist communist. He said, oh no, I'm a socialist. And that was their selling point for weeks. So, they've got to come up with something. The economy's picking up steam. The 160 billion is actually surprised even President Trump. I was with him in the White House when he was talking about the numbers that were coming in, and they were even surprising to them. You got to remember, when we were under the tariff system in this country, we didn't have an income tax. We had more money than we could spend, and it put it on the other people overseas. And all this, and what this will do actually is drive American jobs back home. It's crazy that we have defense systems that could literally be turned off by the communist Chinese because we buy our computer chips from them. That's the kind of thing you got to watch. The K Street lobbyists are in bed with these folks. Let's take our country back. Let's become a sovereign nation again. Let's get control. That's why labor loves Trump. It's not because of the union contract. It's because it's going to bring American jobs home. Yeah. And America ought to be excited about that. Dadgummit, every time I go to the store, I flip a label over and it says made in China. And it just makes me sick to my stomach. But yet we're compromised there. And it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt for a little while. And people are going to lose their jobs and they're going to lose revenue. But dadgummit, we're going to get our country back. And I think that's a little sacrifice to make for a big, huge gain.
Yeah, time for rebalancing of power in the economic world, and something you've been arguing for. Sir, it's a great honor. You have a lot of well-wishers on the show. They always appreciate your time on Real America's Voice. Everyone's worried about you. You okay? You healed up okay from that horse kick?
It only hurts when I breathe.
Oh, no. We will not make you laugh, I promise you.
Yes.
We're not going to do that. Well, a lot of people thinking of you, and I know you didn't miss a beat. You went right back to work, even as injured as you are. That's pretty impressive. So
Thank you. I missed one meeting, one Boy Scout, Eagle Scout ceremony. I'll probably end up taking to a pizza buffet or something.
That's a
Make
good
up for
plan.
it.
That's a good plan.
Good plan.
Well, we're wishing you a speedy recovery, and thank you for being available for us today. Great to have you on, sir.
Love you guys, and always pray for our country.
Amen.
Yeah, that we will. Thank you, sir. All right, folks.
Thank you, brother.
Oh, what a good interview. Always a great interview. All right, after the break, one of my lawyers, he worked on me to sue the government to get all those documents we got in Hunter Biden and Russia collusion. Kimberly Herman from the Southeastern Legal Foundation. She's going to tell you the story of how these new revelations from Tulsi Gabbard at the Unite came from one of our lawsuits. It's quite a yarn. We're going to have that next, right after these messages. Hey folks, if you're a homeowner like me, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is their target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and boom, just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. And that's when the problems begin, because they start taking out loans using your equity and even sell your property. And you're not even going to find out it's happened until you get a collection or foreclosure notice months later. That's a nightmare, right? So when's the last time you checked on your home title? Well, if you're like me, the answer is never, right? You need to do something about that right now. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code JTN at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes that might happen, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. That's a good deal. Find out why I trust Home Title Lock. Go to HometitleLock.com and use the promo code JTN. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code JTN.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. It seems like every day there's more news breaking out about scandals and what the media has deemed the scandal-free Obama White House. Case in point, all the declassified evidence related to the Russia hoax. And it seems that then Vice President Joe Biden played a role in the Russiagate scandal, too, and there were a few other scandals during Biden's time as vice president. One of the reasons we know more about them is because of the work of our next guest. Joining us now is the executive director at the Southeastern Legal Foundation, Kimberly Herman. Kim, great to see you.
Great to be with you.
I actually want to start with an update on the email scandal, because from the information that you got back from NARA, and of course they were holding on to it for a long time, saying, oh, there's nothing of interest in here from President Biden's pseudonym emails, but these were Situation Room meetings, these were briefings with then President Obama. These were not like Clinton classified her emails as about grandchildren and yoga. That's not what this was. Any update?
No, it was not. Just to kind of remind everyone, we're talking about 82,000 pages of emails where President Biden, at the time, Vice President Biden, used pseudonym emails. So he used fake email addresses, Gmail, emails and stuff to hide things from the American public. And so we FOIA'd all of these records, and we've been trying now for years to get them out. Just recently, we did a quick calculation, and about 99.7 of the documents they've reviewed, they've withheld from us, which means that they are now being withheld from the American public. It's been a slow walk, even under the Trump administration. We're getting all of these other releases of documents, but for some reason, the holdovers at NARA keep digging in, and they don't want these emails out for some reason. And we are determined we are going to get them and see what were they actually talking about. Because as you know, and as you said, it wasn't about grandchildren. It wasn't about cookouts, right? This was key information, government business being done over unsecured email servers.
Yeah. So the National Archives gets these records because Joe Biden thinks the things he transmitted on his email account were government business. And you're saying 99% plus of the documents are being withheld from us in the reviews. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. And for months, we actually just recently learned that they were subjectively reviewing these, which means that the people, at NARA were looking at them and going, nope, even though this is between, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, and it hits all of these key words, right? Maybe it talks about Ukraine. It talks about, some of these other key government entities and government transactions that were happening, that they don't think it's relevant. And so they're just going to withhold it. And until the litigation reaches an end, they claim they don't have an obligation to tell us what they're withholding. Normally, you'd have to at least say, it's an email between this person and that person, and it generally dealt with this topic. They're saying they have no obligation to do that. And so we're going to have to go back to the judge here and bring this all to her attention, because the American public needs to know about these documents before it's too late. What damage was done? What national security secrets were possibly disclosed in these? What classified information was disclosed? If we don't see the emails, then we can't actually fix the problems that they created.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And the court system can obviously move this along, but the problem originates with recalcitrant people over there at NARA. If President Trump called you and said, hey, how can I help with more disclosure? How can I increase the transparency? Are there key positions that need to be replaced? What could he do to help?
Yeah, I mean, it's the archivist, right? And so we need to see the people that are at NARA, where, this is the agency that is responsible for holding our key documents in this country. They need to agree with President Trump's take on transparency. They need to actually get in line with what this administration is doing, which is to tell the American public what the government is doing and was doing, so that we can all make those proper decisions for ourselves, and that they can also know, right? What secrets are actually being withheld from this administration? What is it that they're trying to hide in these documents? And so if I were President Trump, I'd want these documents out just as quickly as possible, because he may need to step into action, right? He needs to know what was emailed about through these pseudonym emails.
Kim, when you look at the behavior of the government, does it feel like an ongoing cover-up is occurring at the archives right now?
It's hard to say, right? But I mean, 99.7% of documents being withheld. I don't want to make any accusations, but I think the numbers here speak for themselves.
Yeah. And by the way, Joe Biden thought these were relevant. That's why he sent them there. Right? He didn't think these were personal emails.
Correct.
He was only obligated to sell the ones that were government related. So just remarkable.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
Kim, I want to move into another area where you guys have been hugely protective of the American people. White farmers in this country who have been targeted for the color of their skin by the USDA. Give us an update on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, what we've uncovered here is really just absolutely amazing. Our work in this area started about 5 years ago, when we saw that there were programs coming out of USDA that these expressly exclude American farmers if they are white males. So it started with a loan forgiveness program that we saw. We represented an American farmer, sued the USDA, and the court there immediately says, no, you cannot do that, right? We are a colorblind society. Our Constitution demands that we treat everyone the same regardless of their skin color. And so it slapped down that from the USDA. We then uncovered 9 more programs. We represented American farmers in those and got a preliminary injunction halting those programs. And as we dug and dug, we found dozens and dozens of more programs. And so we've brought that to the attention of the USDA, and they are taking action under President Trump. They are rescinding every single one of these regulations that they possibly can. Our fight isn't over, though. There's still quite a few that were mandated by Congress. And so you can expect to see us back in the courtroom challenging all of those that USDA may not be able to actually get rid of on its own.
Wow. Amazing. Such impact. And what a unique idea. The Agriculture Department's going to go back to awarding money based on merit. What an amazing
Shocking.
idea. Yeah. Well, congratulations for that. I want to turn to another very important role you played. Over the years, you've helped me expose the Hunter Biden grift scheme, a lot of the Russia collusion stuff. One of the things we did was file a FOIA together back in 2019, trying to find out if the Steele dossier was implemented into the intelligence community assessment that concluded that Russia was trying to help Trump win the election, something that we now know to be disputed. Recently, that lawsuit played a major role in prompting the DNI to release information. It turns out that when we put our request in, and SLF did it, it got to the career people, and that's what triggered some whistleblowing. People realizing, hey, wait a second, there shouldn't be a Steele dossier in this intelligence committee. The main revelation is that the career people disagreed with allowing the dossier into the intelligence committee was a direct result of a lawsuit. When you look at those documents, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind is more of what we were talking about before, right? The intentional hiding of documents. As you mentioned, we asked for any of these communications where they were talking about the Steele dossier between the CIA, between DNI, between the FBI, and we were told that only 2 pages existed. We now know in this recent release that not only did they exist, but it's very suspect as to whether or not they were intentionally hidden from us. And so, this raises big flags of, was there bad faith? Who should be held accountable here? And that's certainly things that we're digging into. And you can expect to see us back in the courtroom because these people need to be held accountable. The people who were behind Russiagate, the people who created these falsehoods and then hid them from the American public. And so we might not be able to do a whole lot at SLF on the first piece of that, right? We need Congress to hold all of them accountable. But we can certainly hold the people who hid this from the American public accountable through lawsuits, through bar complaints, ethical filings. And so just like we did back in the Bill Clinton days when he lied under oath, we continue to see this all the way through to the end and get not only the truth out, but hold the people who've hidden that from us accountable because we need people to stop doing this. And until punishment happens, they're going to keep doing it.
I just want to follow up real quickly. It seems as though you might be looking at 2 things: sanctions under the FOIA law, under the Freedom of Information Act law, and then possibly referring people who hid things for further bar licenses. Are there those 2 possible paths for Southeastern Legal Foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we're going to go back to the courtroom and then also refer these out to whatever agencies we need to, whether it's, the bar admissions or whether we're talking about to Congress, and let them do whatever it is that they can do there to hold these bad actors accountable. Because when you go into court and you swear to a judge that no documents exist, despite all of these searches that you did, and then we flat out see that they did those searches and documents were actually responsive and that they should have been released, that can't be allowed to stand in this country.
Yeah.
That's going to get a lot of people's attention when those get filed.
Yeah, Kim, I think about President Trump and his pursuit of weeding out corruption and discrimination, and it must feel like a game of whack-a-mole to him. But thank goodness he has people like you and organizations like yours to root this out. I mean, the USDA programs, he might have never known about this if you had not rooted that out. And there are probably hundreds of those across a dozen agencies in Washington. So you are doing yeoman's work. Kimberly Herman, the executive director over at Southeastern Legal Foundation, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we've got much more after these messages.
Welcome back, everybody. If you've been watching and reading Just the News, you know there's been a real large string of victories for those who fight for the defense of life, to fight the abortion industry. A tremendous run, including in the last few days in Texas, where there's some big announcements. Joining us to discuss all those developments and the enthusiasm in the pro-life movement is the president of 40 Days for Life, our good friend Sean Carney. Sean, good to have you back on.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
All right. Planned Parenthood has had quite a few strikes in the last few weeks, but perhaps none more symbolic or impactful than the decision in the heart of Texas for a Planned Parenthood clinic to close. Tell us about it, why it's important.
Yeah, it's the largest abortion facility in the Western Hemisphere. Planned Parenthood bragged about that. It's 78,000 square feet. It's in Houston, Texas, where I live. I was there in the early days trying to prevent the sale of that building to Planned Parenthood. And we delayed them opening about a year and a half, but they opened. They averaged about 6,000 or 7,000 abortions per year at one point, doing abortions up to 24 weeks when it was legal here in Texas. And they are closing. They can no longer keep that open. And this is on the cusp of them closing their flagship Planned Parenthood back in the spring in Manhattan. And that building is now for sale for $39 million. That was almost more shocking than this. So to have this happen within a couple of months is amazing. There have now been 38 Planned Parenthoods to close in 2025.
Wow.
That's just jaw-dropping.
Yeah, and I know you keep your finger on the pulse of others that have not yet closed, but that are possibly facing closure. How many others out there? Where are they?
Oh, they're everywhere. We just had 4 Planned Parenthoods close in California. There have been 6 that have closed in the last 12 months in the state of New York. What we're seeing is it's not just the red, sort of predictable abortion-free states or states where they highly regulate abortion. Planned Parenthood is closing abortion facilities in places where abortions are on the rise. And the reason for that is because they cannot keep, well, in some of those places, abortions are on the decline, and that's why they're closing. But in other places, it is the defunding and their dependency upon tax dollars. And, 80% of all the abortion pills are still distributed brick and mortar. And so that's one of the reasons why we finally start to see the number of abortion pills going down from 78% of all abortions to a year ago to 68% of all abortions. And so these closures are having a tremendous impact. I think we'll see about 25 to 30 more Planned Parenthoods closed before Christmas.
Wow, that is a huge number. Sean, you mentioned that some are in these blue states that have robust abortion industries within the state, under the state regulations, but there seems to be some generational stuff. It does seem like Gen Z, there's a lower demand for abortions from Gen Z, a more family-friendly generation. What are you seeing just culturally that may also be driving? It's not all just regulatory strikes. There seems to be some culture of life issues blossoming as well.
Yeah, I mean, women are choosing life. That's the good thing. It's the best reason for abortion numbers to go down. And part of it is you have the abortion leaving D.C., where Planned Parenthood really has had a stronghold for decades, and going into the grassroots where the pro-life movement is more powerful. You have things like 40 Days for Life, and Planned Parenthood has said that their abortion no-show rate goes as high as 75%. When we're out there praying and offering alternatives. You also see the number of pregnancy medical centers, they're now outnumber abortion providers 7 to 1. So it's because we are providing the professional and loving options to abortions that women are turning around and hurting the bottom line of these local abortion facilities. Generation Z is by far the most pro-life generation at their age than any other previous generation at that age. And, all of them have a picture of their own ultrasound, and 40% of them voted for Trump. So it's really a phenomenal thing to see younger kids getting more conservative at a younger age.
Yeah. I didn't know that crisis pregnancy centers outnumber abortion facilities. That is absolutely incredible, and what a bright spot in this whole narrative. I want to ask you about the funding though, because Planned Parenthood, they can obviously still reach out for private funding from organizations. You have so many liberals who claim that they support Planned Parenthood and the work that they do. Why aren't they showing up?
I don't know. I mean, last year, Planned Parenthood lost 73,000 individual donors. Ooh. They lost 73,000. Wow. So they had a 32% drop in donations last year. And that is unbelievable. Part of it is they have an incompetent leader. Alexis McGill Johnson is just, it's not her fault. She's just nowhere nearly as talented as Cecile Richards was. And Cecile Richards got sick and had to resign and eventually passed away. But she led them for 12 years. She got them more tax funding. She married herself to the Obama administration. She spoke at the DNC. She raised a lot of money when Trump was elected the first time. She was, unfortunately for us, a very effective leader of Planned Parenthood. They don't have that now. And now they have a lot of employment issues. They have HR issues. They have their staff trying to unionize. There's been a couple locations where Planned Parenthood workers have protested alongside us outside of a Planned Parenthood. So they're a mess at a time they can't afford to be a mess. And that is a tremendous advantage for the pro-life movement. It's one of the many reasons we're winning. We're offering loving and medical alternatives to abortion. We're changing hearts and minds. And that's why it doesn't matter, how pro-abortion California or New York is. You can still close abortion facilities in those states. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Winning the hearts and minds and the cultural argument, the faith argument is just so amazing. Real quickly, you mentioned abortion pills and other things going on. Texas is reaching its long arm into New York, and it's an interesting potential strike. Who would think that the Texas Attorney General would have some jurisdiction in New York? But tell us about that case.
Yeah, an abortion doctor in New York is mailing abortion pills into Texas. That's illegal. That's absolutely illegal. So they're going after the doctor, and this judge is trying to prevent that. But that case hopefully goes to the Supreme Court because Texas is enforcing our abortion laws. If you ship pills into the state, if you prescribe the pills, that is illegal. There's a guy who's going to face a murder trial because he slipped his pregnant girlfriend in Fort Worth an RU-46 abortion pill and killed the baby. And so they have real laws on the books. They're enforcing them. And I like these cases because it highlights that the pro-life states are taking this seriously because they see the unborn person as just that, the biological reality of the baby, and therefore he or she deserves protection under the law.
A little bit of science back on the table. How about that? Sean Carney, it's always an honor to have you on. Congratulations on all the work that you've been doing at 40 Days for Life. Good to have you on today.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a great discussion. All right, folks, I keep warning about this. Amanda keeps warning about this. Free speech may be revived a little bit here in the United States with Donald Trump's win. In overseas, particularly in places like United Kingdom, it is in grave danger. It's on life support. It's in critical condition. We're going to have an incredible story coming out of the United Kingdom in just a second. I'll tell you about that right after these messages. Hey folks, a new administration in Washington, D.C. has brought a lot of positive changes when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The reality is, however, that there's only so much the government can do. And if we really want to make America healthy again, that starts at home with each of us. And that includes you and me. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from TWC doctors all the time on this network, and you know that the products are the gold standard for keeping you and your family safe and healthy. The Wellness Company gives you the opportunity to make sure you are prepared for whatever happens with their series of prescription medical kits. Kits that contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of all these medications. Additionally, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products from parasite cleanses to methylene blue to weight loss and so much more that can help you stay healthy and live a longer and more satisfying life. Make America healthy again starts at home with you and me. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to www.twc.health/justnews today and order. That's twc.health/justnews. Use the promo code JUSTNEWS to save 10%.
Welcome back, everybody. If it has not been made clear that Europe has a much different view about free speech than the United States does, then we have more evidence for you, unfortunately. A new law went into effect in the UK called the Online Safety Act, which requires anyone within the UK's borders, including Americans, to submit their secure papers to access lawful information online, and gives British bureaucrats broad, sweeping powers to determine what content they believe is harmful online. And we already know that just posting wrongthink in the UK can literally land you in prison. So joining us to discuss this is the Director of Policy for NetChoice, Patrick Hedger. Patrick, welcome back.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It also sounds like they are trying to or already have banned VPNs, which is kind of one of the only workarounds there. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so of course, this sounds like a great law. Who could be against the
does.
Online Safety Act? But the devil is always in the details with legislation like this. And what we are seeing is that you are being forced to show your ID, your government ID, some of your most sensitive information, to be able to access benign services like Spotify, to be able to just listen to music online. You have to show your ID. And of course, all the proponents of this law say, oh, this is just targeting pornography. It's targeting other things we don't want kids to see. That's all well and good, but what you have to, again, look at the details here. The penalties here are so severe that companies are putting in place these age gates because they're scared of the government. And it's really concerning because copycats of the Online Safety Act in the United Kingdom have been introduced at the state and federal level here in the United States. So, and yes, of course, the British are trying to take the step to ban VPNs, which is a huge attack on privacy, and having to show your ID to be able to speak online is, of course, a huge attack on anonymous speech.
And the synergies between Great Britain and those who would prefer a censorship industrial complex here are very close, right? GARM was in Great Britain and then clearly tried to insert its ideas into the American society. Obviously, the Trump era has given a remarkable reversible to that trend, but there's a lot of people waiting for the next Democrat president to do this here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We at NetChoice have been fighting laws like this at the state level that would force you to show your ID to use very common online services, like even doing a Google search. And you have to look at the underlying DNA of the UK's Online Safety Act and some of the bills that have been proposed here, even at the federal level. There's a federal bill called COSA, right? It's the Children's Online Safety Act, it is a bill that, of course, who could be against a bill that's called that? But again, you have to look at the details. The penalties are so severe that you're going to have web services that are collecting IDs. And we just saw how dangerous that can be with this latest T app that was on the App Store. It was collecting IDs to verify that its users were women, and all of those IDs were breached. And somebody created a map of where those users live. That's how serious the cybersecurity implications are here. Yes, we want to keep people safe online, but there are constitutional ways to do that that do not invade privacy.
Yeah. The names of these bills are always so deceptive. It's like a Sydney Sweeney skin suit on Rosie O'Donnell. It's just never what it looks like on the outside. I want to ask you about two competing political ideologies happening simultaneously in the UK. On one hand, they were the first before the United States to return to normalcy and sanity when it came to the gender issue, and yet they're going in the opposite direction on this. How do those two ideologies and those two, leftward and rightward directions coexist?
Yeah, I can't claim to be an expert on British politics or British society, but I think it's an important lesson for us not to just immediately graft ideas from the United Kingdom over here to the United States. We have a different, really underlying political history that's really important. Yes, we have some shared values like common law and things like that, but we have things here in the United States because we broke away from the United Kingdom. We have the First Amendment. These are things that we have to cherish here. And so it's really concerning to me when I see U.S. lawmakers at both the state and federal level saying, oh, well, this is a great thing that we're hearing from the United Kingdom. We just need to apply that here. That should be a non-starter.
Yeah, it should be. Real quickly before we let you go, there was a story on Just the News last week. The British London police have created a unit full-time to monitor speech online for any negative comments about migrants or illegal migrants in Great Britain. That looks a little bit eerily similar to what the FBI was doing with Twitter during the COVID pandemic. Your thoughts on this idea that police are going to become a bigger part of speech monitoring in the world that far left censors are envisioning in the future?
Well, ultimately, this is why we oppose having to show ID to speak online. Right. Anonymous speech is a critical bedrock foundational principle in the United States. I mean, the Federalist Papers themselves, right, written pseudonymously. So the ability to be able to speak without a fear of threat or recourse. I mean, think back to the mid-2010s when we were talking about the IRS targeting people because of their political participation. So we see the value in being able to speak freely and being able to speak without being identified or threatened. And so that's why it is really so critical that we focus on things to help keep people safe online, like public education and resources for parents and law enforcement, versus having everybody put their ID and most sensitive information right next to what they're saying on their social media.
Yeah. There's something bad in the water in these Commonwealth countries because it's the UK, it's Canada, it's Australia to some degree. I don't know what it is, but it scares the stink out of me. I don't want it coming here. Patrick Hedger, Director of Policy for NetChoice, thanks so much for being with us tonight and shining light on these big issues, because you're right, they could come to our shores the next time a Democrat's in power.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, some final thoughts on the other side when we come back from this break. Welcome back to our final segment of the night, John. Every once in a while there is a news story that seems to shift the sentiment in Washington. And I think that this story today about the grand jury being impaneled, look, we don't know what charges might come, and we won't know that probably for some time, but it feels like the American people are finally moving in the direction of getting answers.
I think that's right. I think the question was, would Pam Bondi follow the normal process? And so the first process is, let the FBI open up the investigation. They did that. That's the grand conspiracy case. Then she applied the strike force concept, which is get your best stars and put them on one team, put them at this. That is something they use typically for a conspiracy case involving the mob or drug cartels. Now it's going to be used with the Obama administration and those who succeeded it. And then the next question is, are you going to empower that entity, the strike force, to go get the evidence, compel the turning over of evidence? And today we learned the answer is yes, grand jury. Now, here's what I think is going to be the next few things to be watching. People said, well, why was it today? Why today? Well, over the weekend, a couple of major U.S. attorneys got approved. Janine Pirro in Washington, D.C. didn't have it, and then the Miami U.S. attorney, who is, by all accounts, an outstanding litigator and prosecutor candidate, he got approved. And as we've been saying, one of the notions in the FBI case is to take this case in Florida, start with Jack Smith, the most current event, and work its way backwards. The fact that those two got approved this weekend and she did this today maybe tells you something. I think you should look for the following moves. And again, we're still a couple weeks off from this, but I think the most likely place will be the grand jury will be impaneled in Florida, maybe a place like Fort Pierce, where Judge Cannon used to reside or operated out of. And to look at the primary crime, something that stretches from 24 back to 16, as the deprivation of civil rights. That you deprive people like Mike Flynn, George Papadopoulos, President Trump, Carter Page, their civil liberties by the way you conducted government business without a basis to intrude on their freedoms, their speech and other things. And then with that, you can take that to the censorship era. You can take that to the Ukraine era. You can take that all the way to the raid at Mar-a-Lago and whatever happened in the aftermath of that. I would be looking for a grand jury to be operating in Florida. And I think maybe the Senate finally burping up a couple of these nominations, getting them done. One of those being Miami, the other being Washington, D.C. Judge Janine would be an outstanding prosecutor as well. The jury pool's a lot tougher here for this sort of a case. So I think Florida is the place that I'm going to be watching closely to see if the first subpoenas come. That's what's next, right? Grand jury, and what do grand juries issue? They issue subpoenas.
Yeah. And, here in D.C., that would be, I guess, under Judge Boasberg's.
It's another reason Judge Boasberg has really asserted himself in front of the Trump administration, and he's the chief judge here in the district. So. And
the thing with Florida, because liberals are going to say, oh, if it's impaneled in Florida, then it's definitely going to go the direction of President Trump and against these who have been possible conspirators. But Florida is a fair venue. D.C. is not a fair venue. D.C., you know which way it's going to go. They're not going to.
90-10. And Florida's 55-45, and in some places it's the other way around. Miami did go for President Trump this time, but traditionally it hasn't. And Miami would be the chief district for a trial potentially. So it's just a more evenly split populace as opposed to a 90-10 populace in D.C., which we saw how that worked for John Durham.
Yeah. All right, I want to shift to something else that's cultural. So the Sydney Sweeney thing, you've all heard about this by now. We don't need to explain it. Border Patrol put out a video where they used a lot of the same language about having great genes and, it being passed down from generation to generation. And it was a recruiting ad. But gosh, I don't even know if they're going to need it because their acting director just said that they have 78,000 applicants for, now that's ICE, but still, I mean, people who are looking to protect the homeland in one way or another.
When you return agencies back to their core mission, you stop social engineering, you put the military back to just fighting wars. Look what happened. Recruitment went up. You put ICE back to and CPB back. People want to go and do those jobs. They're honorable jobs, but who wants to do them if you aren't allowed to do those jobs? And I think that is a really encouraging sign. It's a warning sign to the Democrats too that they continue to pick the wrong fights. I fear Mondami will be the next wrong fight they pick in New York for Democrats, but that's Democrats have to come to this on their own and realize they're running into a headwind of enormous common sense in America right now. I had a favorite story this morning.
Yes.
Because I watched the New York Times and everybody say, oh, this whole Hillary Clinton thing is Russian disinformation. Jerry Dunleavy went through every book written by Hillary Clinton and her staff, every speech, every interview they gave after 2017. He found their signed confessions that she did, in fact, order the Russia dirty trick, and in the same specificity, including getting the FBI involved. It is a devastating 8,000-word story. It's a long story, but if you want to see how easy it will be for the government to pierce Hillary Clinton's denials right now, this is a must-read story. I'm so proud of it. Jerry does great work. We have him on the show every so often, but Such a great story.
Absolutely. All right. So, we only have 35 seconds left.
Sorry.
All right. So, jobs numbers got revised down.
Yep.
BLS is out.
Yep.
BLS commissioner is out. President Trump says he's going to hire somebody very quickly. Thoughts?
Yeah, he will, and then we'll see what the numbers do after that, and then see whether there was political manipulation on. There was a year and a half where the Bureau of Labor Statistics almost every time we give a number, then revise it
That's
substantially.
the thing.
Can't we get it right the first time?
Even if
I think it's a competence
even if it's
issue.
not politically weighted, it's
Just
a
competence.
competence.
That's
Yes,
what I
thank
agree.
you.
I agree
All
with
right,
you.
everybody. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful evening. See you then.